but I had the pleasure of meeting Anne when I was reaching out to people, alumni in the Philadelphia area, and Anne and her husband and I had a wonderful dinner together. I learned a little bit about her background, and most importantly, that she's this wonderful graduate of our 2021 program, a master's in theology. And really, she spent 4 years on an online capacity getting that degree, all the while working, being a mom of 2 adult daughters and caring for her community and her parish and all her great work. She actually works in a really great capacity for a nonprofit called the St. Raymond Anonymous Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. She'll probably talk to you a little bit about that. But really, we're excited because she's also a new author. So her book is really focusing on what she wants to talk about and what she's passionate about, which is really serving the people who are marginalized, the people who in fact don't have the support systems they need to get through each and every day. And her book, which is entitled Love and Care for the Marginalized, it's 40 meditations available through Amazon and Kindle. So we're hoping that you all get a chance. We'll be typing that in, a little bit about that book in the chat function. So we hope you all get a chance to look at that. Before Anne begins, let me just share with you that she has a wonderful slide presentation that she's going to walk us through. We'll then have an opportunity to ask questions, so we can do that by entering them in the chat function, or actually just speak up and address what your question might be as we go on. We hope this is a nice free flow conversation after Anne is finished with her presentations. So Anne, you're going to visit the campus and see all of these wonderful people someday. But for now, please join us virtually and tell us all about you and your book and your great work in the Philadelphia area. Thank you, Anne.
Joanne, thank you so much. Of course, it was a pleasure as well for my husband and I to meet you and spend time. And now what we talked about that night at the dinner is happening because you had invited me to do something like this for St. Joseph's. You know, I can't say enough good about my experience at St. Joseph College of Maine, earning my MA in theology last year in 2021. And even though we were going through COVID, of course, I was an online student. And, you know, it was just an honor for me. I got to know some wonderful people. And of course, a lot of writing and a lot of reading, and, you know, came away just loving my experience there. And I am really thrilled to still stay in touch and meet all of you and hopefully make some greater connections with all of you too. So thanks to all of you for taking this hour with me and learning about the book that I wrote and the whole idea of what it means to love and care for marginalized people. And that book, as Joanne said, it is available on Kindle and Amazon. Now I'm going to turn it over right now to the PowerPoint. I will admit to all of you that the PowerPoint, I do have a script. I do have things that I want to make sure that I say and that I present to you. But there will be some, you know, talking points in between. And of course, we'll have time at the end to discuss any questions that you have about how we can better serve them. Because, you know, they're around all of us. And some of us have been marginalized before in our lives for different reasons. And I'm also going to talk about that too. So let me turn it over to sharing my screen and getting to our PowerPoint. Okay. And so my first slide is basically an introduction of becoming more compassionate. And the presentation centers on what it means to become more compassionate to those who are marginalized in our lives and the ways that we can reach out to them, those who feel alone, rejected, and not supported. Marginalized people are those who don't have the love and support they deserve. And that's my own definition of it in a simple way. Perhaps during this hour, I would challenge all of us, including me, to think of people we know right now who could use our prayer, our cares, and our outreach. Because to me, that's what it really means, is how can we make outreach to them? How can we learn more about ways that we can find marginalized people? Now, the first slide that I have after this one is a question. Is it possible? Is it possible for us to become more compassionate? And my answer is that yes, it is. It takes our openness of the spirit, our willingness to use our senses, and a seed of compassion that is inside each of us. It certainly is possible to become more empathetic and compassionate. All of us are unique and we have varied personalities, and there is a psychology to who we are and what motivates us. If we dig deep inside our souls by the grace of God, we can learn to become more caring, more loving, and more empathetic to the pain of others. I think it's good for us to examine that. I've heard it before that people are just born either empathetic or compassionate or not. And I think my challenge to myself and to all of us is that I do think we can learn to become more compassionate. Here's a picture of me. In fact, now I know I'm sharing my screen right now, but I see that. Are all of you also seeing the little zoom off to the right? I think
Yeah.
you are. So if I
Yes.
minimize that, you're not seeing it now, correct? Okay. So this is a picture of me in the early 2000s with my husband, Angelo, and my two daughters who are now in their 20s. This was an Easter Sunday. And as I said, I'm reading now, is that this is a picture of me when my daughters were very young. They're now in their mid-20s. It was Easter Sunday, and this picture was taken at our church at the time. My husband, Angelo, and I were busy parents in our 30s. He worked as an accountant full-time, and I was a stay-at-home mom. 5 years prior to this photo, after the birth of my second daughter, I was diagnosed with a rare heart condition that I recovered from by the grace of God. Previous to that, I did not turn to God as often as I would have liked in my life. But after experiencing the illness and a recovery, my faith and prayer became especially important to me. All was going well for several years after this event. God revealed to me during this illness how others who suffer with health problems must feel as they go through so much pain. It gave me the ability to empathize more greatly with those who are scared, lonely, depressed, and unsure of the future. And by the way, the condition that I had was one of my heart. It was called peripartum cardiomyopathy. It was very serious. It was a congestive heart failure. So God really did show me and teach me what it feels like to be in that place of suffering. And this is a picture of my daughter and I. And in this slide, I say we can find our own Calcutta inside the walls of our own homes. And that's from St. Teresa of Calcutta. This is a photo after the most painful and difficult series of events that happened to me just years after the last photo I shared with you. My daughter, Sean, in this photo, at the age of 9 years old, went through a challenging time in her young life. She began to experience a time of great anxiety, which as a family, we struggled to help her. This lasted a matter of several months, but the effects of the crisis continued for a few years after. There were many sleepless nights and worrisome days which happened over a period of time. After much prayer, research, and finding the right help, she learned how to deal with this anxiety. Thankfully, as time progressed, things got better. Less than a year after these events, depression set in on my own life. Friends that I used to hear from had stopped calling. My husband became frustrated with me for not seeming myself, and I found myself very much alone in terms of support, both inside and outside my family. This was no one's fault, but I became isolated, and this lasted for a matter of about 4 years. It lasted a long time, and I began to wonder if it would ever end. I did seek professional help, namely therapy, but even with that, I continued to feel alone and without the support of friends or community during that 4-year span. This quote says we can find our own Calcutta inside the walls of our own homes. Later in this presentation, I'll share the direct quote from Mother Teresa for you to understand what this exactly means. Basically, it means that in helping those who feel alone and misunderstood, we do not have to look extremely far as they are close to us, much closer than we realize. So who are the marginalized in your life? I think this is a question not just from you or me, but for all of us. In light of my own experiences, My biggest takeaway was that I had learned from dealing with a heart condition in the past what it felt like to be scared and unsure. The second situation with depression and isolation taught me how those who feel marginalized by their life circumstances and perhaps by other people feel as well. These experiences have given me purpose to try to minister and care and to bring love to those who feel out of place and misunderstood at times. So I ask you, have you ever experienced feeling marginalized? Do you know of anyone right now in your life? Excuse me for 1 second. In your life who may be going through a period of loneliness and could use your support? Go on to the next slide. So how do we find them? Many people think of marginalized people as the homeless, the poor, and the sick. They certainly are. They're people we know quite well. They're our neighbors, friends, coworkers, extended family, people at school, at church, and other places. Many times they're quieter people, those who do not want to make a spectacle of themselves. However, those who feel alone and ostracized are varied in personality traits. Most of all, they're sensitive people who many times, through no fault of their own, find themselves alone, misunderstood, rejected, and unheard. To find the marginalized, we must keep our eyes and our ears, and most of all, our hearts open to them. And I say that we find them everywhere. Places here on my slide are our homes, neighborhood, extended family, church or worship site, work, online, and other places. All of us see and experience those who could use our help and support day in and day out. I don't think we have to go very far to find them. During this talk and our time together, I'd like to give you ideas on where to find them and how to be your best self for them and to help to make the world a better place. I do think it's possible for us to do that. So what does the church have to say on this topic? Does the church have something to say on it? Yes. And I say in my slide that Jesus teaches us that we must care and reach out. The catechism and church teaching say the same. And it's a main focus of what it means to be Catholic, and I think Christian or just a person of goodwill. Being kind is important. And I say in this slide that many times, all of us see and experience those who could use our help and support day in and day out. And that also in my book, Love and Care for the Marginalized, it's a book geared for Catholics, but it's really a subtitle that includes also quotes and meditations and reflections that come from varied sources. Popes, saints, religious leaders, movie quotes, and others are included in the book, making it appropriate for anyone. So even though it does have a Catholic feel to it, the fact that I've included quotes from people like Dr. Martin Luther King and Muhammad Gandhi and others, and also even some movie quotes talking about how we can make the world a better place. As I said, being kind is important for all of us to make the world better. Now, that might sound cliche, but making the world gentler and kinder, I believe, is a worthy goal. Here's our Holy Father. He says the church is a field hospital and that we're part of the mission of mercy. And I thank St. Joseph's College of Maine because that's what you're all about too, I believe. So Pope Francis has had so much to say about mercy and in giving it to others. It's been a big part of his public ministry. The field hospital is the entire world, and every member of society has a part in helping to minister and love others. Those who have been marginalized need to know and to feel that they're loved for and cared about. So many people don't have the love and support they deserve. He says love of neighbor is a fundamental attitude that Jesus speaks of. And he says that our relationship with God cannot be honest if we're not willing to make peace with our neighbor. Now, that's from a homily from 2014, St. Peter's Square. Making peace with others includes those we do not necessarily like, think about often, or even care about. God places everyone in our lives for a reason. It's our job to be open to the Holy Spirit, to find those who need to feel and to know God's love. One way this is accomplished is through us, not through someone else. God is calling each of us to partake in this mission. This slide says, how can we show mercy in daily living? And one way, which is a big part of my book and also this presentation, is through active listening. Active listening is one way. Active listening is allowing someone to take the time to be heard, listened to, and cared about. It's not easy to do. It's a skill that must be learned, and it takes practice. It is allowing someone to finish a sentence, a story in full without interruption. It is giving them a chance to be heard. We don't need to fix them, and we don't need to force them in any way to agree with or live the way that each of us live or believe. It is an opportunity to love through listening and through caring. Don't give up on yourself if you find it frustrating to do. It is not easy, but it is always worth it. It is a true gift to another person and a way to bring healing to their lives, that someone does care. That someone is you. And I've explained in my last slide what active listening is. We give the person a chance to tell their story without judgment. We give the person a chance to tell the story without judgment. And the key word here is without judgment. Not one of us is perfect, as it is just the way we are created and who we are as humans. When we can step back and look at a marginalized person as an equal in every way, we can begin to understand that when we listen without judgment, we give that person a chance to be heard. You may be the very first person that they've ever told their story to without hearing all the shoulds and shouldn'ts. You give them a chance to rest as they talk about their pain and the pain that they've experienced in their lives. You're giving them a chance to heal and to be able to move on. Remember, people do not want to be fixed, especially those who have been ostracized, rejected, and hurt by the world. And may I mention also on another note that when I was going through my time of depression, I did have a group of friends that I had at church, and they were very good people. And a lot of times they would tell me that they were praying for me, which was a beautiful thing. But the one thing that I found that I could not find at that time was someone to do what I just explained to you, which is the active listening. And I think that's just an important facet of healing. I'm going to go into the next slide. We don't need to fix them, as I said. We just need to pray and to care, really care. When we pray and care, really care, it's a job that so many do not want to do. But as Pope Francis alluded to, being a part of the field hospital is a task for each member of society. Going the extra mile for another person who's suffering is a gift to them and a gift to God. If you find it hard to care, then pray. Prayer is the breath of faith in a relationship of trust and a relationship of love. Dialogue cannot be left out, and prayer is the dialogue of the soul. That's another one from Pope Francis, from a homily from 2013, St. Peter's Square. Okay, here's another picture of me and my daughters as they got a little older. So this picture is probably about 10 years ago or so when they were mid-teens. And I say here, what else can we do to help them? And I'm talking about the marginalized. I say we can be there for them. Don't give up. We must do more than pray. We must let them know that we won't leave them in their pain alone. This is a picture of my daughters and I, who were teenagers at the time. I was still going through a, quote, rough time after having been through the depression a few years before. I had a smile on my face, but I was in pain. God was with me and got me through, thankfully. He still gets me through. Lessons learned is that many people during that time would offer a prayer for me, which I appreciated, but I missed their presence. Sometimes a consequence of low self-confidence, depression, and isolation is that some people do not wish to be around depressed people. It's hard to be around or spend time with those who you may feel bring you down. But it is of immense importance not to give up on them. Pray about who you may be there for in a time of trouble. And as I said, I do think that people a lot of times have good intentions, but they just don't know what to say. And I think what I'm trying to offer here is that sometimes we don't need to say too much, but to listen. Find your Calcutta. It may be closer than you think. And of course, this is St. Teresa of Calcutta. She says, stay where you are. Find your own Calcutta. Find the sick, the suffering, and the lonely right there where you are, in your own homes, in your families, in your workplaces, and in your schools. Oh, excuse me, let me go back to the other one. You can find Calcutta all over the world if you have the eyes to see. Everywhere, wherever you go, you will find the people who are unwanted, unloved, uncared for, just rejected by society, completely forgotten, completely left alone. I think a major message in this quote is that we do not have to go extremely far to find Calcutta.
Oh my God. Do I have your permission to push through workers' comp? It's a Medicare, but they have an alert. Once it's scheduled for tomorrow.
That is my message as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Oops, I think we're hearing some background noise there. Thank you. Loving and caring for the marginalized are much, much closer than we think. And I think when we open our eyes, we can find people who are.
I think it's related, but she's going to confirm with the daughter.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think is that.
Could I ask everyone to please turn your microphones off? There is some background noise that we're having trouble listening to Anne. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. So anyway, to go back to the Calcutta, is that that quote that I read was from her, of course. And I think that when we open our eyes in the way that she's describing, not only can we find people who could use food, water, shelter, clothing, and all of those corporal works of mercy, but we can also help them in those spiritual works of mercy, the ways that we can be open to being there for them in a pastoral and spiritual way as well. Okay, so what should we do? First and foremost is avoiding the urge to run away from those who are suffering and experiencing pain. There's a lot more to it than this, but this is a core message. We must stand by those God sends us who need to know that they are cared for and supported. So I think that's mostly what we should avoid. Okay, here's another one. So avoid gossip and bullying because it happens everywhere. I think all of you know that too. Unfortunately, gossiping and bullying happen all over the place. It happens at home, at work, at school, at church, and houses of worship, online, and other places. Gossip is destructive to humans. In order to combat it, we must simply walk away from it or do our best to defend those who are being talked about and ridiculed. Defending the friendless is a command of Jesus to follow the gospel and to live it. There are many forms of bullying, which I'll discuss. It's also very destructive behavior that harms human beings and their well-being. When you say no to gossip and bullying, you are saying yes to God and to being a more compassionate person. You are living the golden rule when you walk away from these two divisive behaviors. And we can talk about more about this during our time of sharing. Now, I list here some forms of bullying, and I'm going to read all of them. And there might be more or even less than this, but here's what I came up with. So ignoring to spite, yelling, gossiping, physical harm, belittling, prejudice, social media bullying, discussing someone's private business, slandering, excluding someone, laughing at someone, unkind behavior toward another, ruining another's reputation, snide remarks, ganging up on someone, whispering about someone in a group setting, air of superiority, playing mind games, alienating, snobbery, stealing, and robbing. I know that's a big list. I know it's a lot, but this is a list, but this, oh, excuse me, I'm gonna go back to the slide. Okay. I know it's a lot, but it might be even longer than this. In order for all of us to heal from these behaviors, we must know exactly what they are in order to stop them in their tracks when we see it happening. If any of these things have ever happened to you, I want to say that I'm so sorry of what you went through. Please know that I will personally pray for you, and I invite you to reach out to me if you need someone to listen. I want to share with you a quick story that I won't go into too much detail, but one of the most difficult moments of my life was when a member of Catholic clergy treated me with some of these ways. It shook me to the core. I did have to seek counseling for it. And to this day, I still have to continue to forgive. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, as I don't think it's the proper time. But all I will say is that I learned that even inside the walls of our churches, that there are people who use their religion and use their, as I used in one of these, it says the air of superiority, which I do think is something that we should really examine, that how this can hurt other people. So that's all I'll say about this, but I do think that it's an area that we should all think about and how we can love others and reject bullying. So how can you help? I would say examine your heart. What are your life motivations? Pray for virtue to become more compassionate. I believe motivations are big when it comes to examining our hearts. In our society, we're taught that money, good looks, and popularity are what make a person more special, above others, and successful in life. From a very young age within society, the competition begins even when children are babies. I remember going to a play group where moms compared things such as when their babies took a first step, knew the alphabet, etc. Then in school, it became about grades, sports, popularity, and getting into the most prestigious colleges. As time moves along, then it becomes about the size or decorating in one's home, looking young, and having lots of friends. These are not good life goals, and not particularly good for society either when it becomes a comparison game. With this kind of mindset, there will always be people who are left out. That is where we come in to love the unloved, the unloved, and care about those who are uncared for, and to be a support for those who have none. These are life goals that mean something to God, when at the top of the list is loving and serving the outcast, rejected, and the ostracized. Most important, do not walk away. The marginalized need to know that they are cared for and supported. This is key. They need to know they matter to God and to you. Being genuine is an excellent way to show the marginalized they are cared about. When we care about the needs of others for their sake, and not just to say, I did something nice for someone, just to feel, quote, good about oneself, that is so important. When we model after the gospel, nice and kind things are done out of love for God and not to get an award for being a good person or to say to someone else what a wonderful thing you did. Again, motivations are key. Examine your heart and ask yourself why you're doing something. And I know I have to do that often. In this slide, what things are least important in the process? Meditate on the fact that what other people think about you does not matter. It only matters what God thinks. I mean that for myself too. Power, popularity, and pleasure are society's motivators. In the world of virtue and of God's kingdom, these are vices. They exist everywhere. Ask yourself, are you more concerned about being well-liked, powerful, and only seeking fun? Think of ways you can fulfill your personal mission to become more compassionate. Remember, character and virtue matter more than reputation. Character is about virtue and about following your conscience at all times. Reputation is what others think of you. Hands down, character and virtue matter more than reputation. Something to consider. Make it a habit to pray, to call, and to care. Call them and reach out. Pray, reach out, and most of all, care. These days, many people do not really like to spend time talking on the phone as they did in years past. It's true that everyone's busy. However, for people who feel alone, lonely, and isolated, that call may mean the world. Make it a habit to be open to talking on the phone, visiting someone, or simply just being open to times during the day when you can spend a few moments listening to someone and showing them that you're there for them. If it's too much for your schedule to do it often, schedule out when during the week or during the day or week that you can be available to others. And I love these two pictures right here because it shows someone just listening and then two men out on the basketball court enjoying each other's company. Is there anything else to do? Excuse me, I've got to go back to my page before. So is there anything else to do? Some things depend on God, not on you. Be open to how your conscience is speaking to you and what God reveals in prayer and what the other person is revealing to you as they talk about their pain and their sufferings. It's really about love. And I will also say, sometimes people speak to you without saying a word. So sometimes you can listen to their words and sometimes they may be quiet and you can read through their expressions and through their emotions. So it is about love. Love is what it's all about. Love is willing the best for another person and loving them through the pain and difficulties of life. Without love, deeds, even the most brilliant, count as nothing. That's from St. Therese of Lisieux. She's a doctor of the Catholic Church. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with truth. Love never ends. And that's from 1 Corinthians 13 from the Bible. This quote says it all as we strive to give love to other people. Love is at the core of what it means to become more compassionate. And Mother Teresa again, emulate a favorite saint or a person of virtue. And Mother Teresa, St. Teresa of Calcutta says, don't expect your friend to be a perfect person, but help your friend to become a perfect person. That is true friendship. And first, I don't believe that Mother Teresa is saying perfect is in a worldly sense. Let's assume she means perfect in terms of virtue, of being good and caring person and loving God and others. When we care about our friends and loved ones in this kind of way, it is virtuous. And it is something beautiful to imitate and to share repeatedly with those around you. I think all of you may agree on that. Mm-hmm. And this is a picture of me, not only with my family and some extended family, but of friends of a religious order. And I say with God, all things are not only possible, but they become a reality through your prayer, your care, and most of all, your love. This is a photo of my family along with friends of a religious order, the Mercedarians, which are the religious order that I went to when I went through a very difficult time of healing for about 4 years and a moderate depression. Some of these religious people helped me through that time. Through the prayers, listening ear, and a great friendship of a priest and a spiritual director, I found healing and made new friends and community in the process. Not only that, I became the director of their nonprofit, which helps families in crisis. I'm now able to help other people who are suffering through adversity through the charism of this beautiful religious order. The foundation is called the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. And the website is nonatus.org for your knowledge. Now, I'm sure some of you have seen the movie Rocky, and this is one of the quotes from the movie. It says on the side there, don't ever give up. And from the movie, he says, the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place. And I don't care how tough you are, it'll beat you to your knees and leave you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit, but keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That is how winning is done. And that's from the movie Rocky Balboa from 2006. I'm a Philadelphian, so the movie series Rocky is special to me. The theme is simple. It's not about how hard you hit. And I don't think it means physically hit, but how hard you hit, meaning, how hard you can give to life, but about moving forward. That's something I had to do in my own life. And I believe this is a message for all of us. but most especially for those who have gone through so much. It's our job to love and care for those who do not have the love and support that they deserve. Make no mistake, all people deserve love and care. Moving forward for others also means helping the weak, the poor, the outcast, and the marginalized to cross the finish line of life, headed toward the heavenly reward someday. Make it a life goal to help those who need your support to cross that finish line with your help, and of course, with God's. Pray, hope, and don't worry. That's from St. Padre Pio. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that one before. And pray, hope, and don't worry is Padre Pio's most famous quote: to pray, to hope, and not to worry. This is a good lesson, not just for us, but to share with those who could use your encouragement. One way to help those who are alone and rejected is to share with them tidbits of faith to lighten their loads and to show them that not only does God care, but so do you. I wrote some reflections on how we can move ahead with helping the marginalized, and we can talk about that at the end here. My reflection questions are: who are the marginalized in your life? How do you think you can support them at this time? Can you think of anyone else who may be able to use your love and support in a greater way right now? What would you like to do to make outreach? Be creative if needed. In what ways would you like to grow in faith as a result of this decision to reach out to others? How can you make this practice ongoing in your daily life and ministry? Let's talk. Is there anything you would like to share? Of course, we're going to save that for we're almost finished here. The presentation is almost complete, but it is now not finished totally until we share your thoughts. There's no pressure to share, but if there's anything that comes to mind, share it in the chat box or verbally upon completion. I'll be praying for you. I'm the author of the book called Love and Care for the Marginalized, 40 Meditations, Spiritual Outreach Reflections for Catholics, and the director of the St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith at nonatus.org. The family helps families in crisis through pastoral outreach and offers a free pastoral session with a Mercedarian friar. If you're interested, just go to nonatus.org. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining me to share the importance of loving and caring the marginalized in our lives. I wish you all the best as you think of these things. Perhaps there's something small you may remember from this talk. If there is anything you remember, I hope it's this: the marginalized are those who do not have the love and support that they deserve. Let us move forward to love and serve them. I'm here for people like you and others who have an open heart to loving the unloved of our world. And that's a picture of my book right there at the end. It is available on Amazon and Kindle. And I basically, if you go onto Amazon and just key those words and you'll find it. I'm gonna end the stop share here, and I'm gonna come back. Thank you all so much for joining me on this journey.
Thank you so much, Anne, for your great words and the experiences that you've had, and certainly the work that you do. And it's now time, participants, to open up the floor to comments, questions, anything at all that we want to share and talk about. I know Anne is anxious and listening and wanting to facilitate.
Yes, absolutely. I just go to that first question. And if anyone wants to share on this, this is somewhat of a personal question, but if it's not you, maybe it's someone else. I mean, have you had an experience that you'd like to share with feeling that way that has helped you to reach out more to other people? Maybe not exactly like my situation, but maybe it was something else. It could have been an illness, a relationship issue, a job loss, a difficulty with another person, with a child. It happens even within, in the church, doesn't it? I think these issues happen within the church too.
I share something?
Sure.
Well, okay, my name is Rob. I'm from Maine. I went through a difficult period of time in the church because, and I'll share this, but it's been a long road with it. But being sexually abused, and also by clergy in a tree in the church. That took me to a very deep level of hurt, anger, and I went to report it. The church shut the door. That was earlier. I was a minor, and I was and that first time, and then I was like 18 the next time. So I had to do my own recovery through a lot of anger by getting counseling on my own and getting a lot of help and reaching out to a lot of different people. And but it took me to a level of depression, trying to end my life. I mean, it just went on and on. All my relationships failed through a lot of anger, this is a deeper thing, obviously. But, and then finally the church acknowledged and then finally provided a counselor, a spiritual director. And then, and back in, I don't know what it was, 15 years ago or so. So it's been a long road to try to get out of that cycle, in reaching out. But I really liked what you said. Our relationship with God is about love. And so, but the change that happened with me is that I was able to, because of my relationship with Jesus, right? And I'm in the church, I'm still in the church, he took me to better people, better situations, and got me out of the negative, bad, unhealthy situations and brought me into those better situations and provided, and the church also provided me what I needed, which were quite a few period of, the past 15 years. So I just wanted to share that is that, it's amazing reaching out to the right people, make difference, to help out, and took out that really awful situation,
I want to thank you for
So I just wanted to
sharing
share
that.
that.
Yeah, Rob, that is such a big thing that you're able to share that with all of us. And I offer you my prayers and care, and just so glad that you got through that most difficult time of your life. As I mentioned during my presentation, what I went through, where I had some difficulties with the church, wasn't in that realm of physical. It was more in the, interacting with the way that someone, with the way I was treated verbally, but that can be very hurtful. I think, any ways that sometimes in the church, makes such an effect on the heart, doesn't it? It just, whatever type of
Yeah.
abuse or mistreatment, right? So thank you so much for sharing that. It's just so helpful. And for people who are watching this right now, maybe they've gone through possibly maybe something similar, and you've given them some hope. I wondered if anybody else had anything to share, because, my question for the presentation is it possible, right? Is it possible for us to become more compassionate? Some people say no, because we're born a certain way, that, our personalities, and that some people are more quiet. Some people, aren't ones that really like to reach out or, have that empathetic kind of seed inside of them, if that makes any sense, But I think I would offer to all of you, and even to myself, that I do think that it's a skill that we can learn. Does anybody else agree with that? Or have you ever experienced that in your life, where you've learned to be a better listener and that it's made an effect on someone else?
Can I share again?
Yes, please do.
Well, what I did is I channeled mine into, I started visiting elderly. And so I have several elderly homes, and I have residents I go visit, and some of them don't have anyone to visit them. So I channeled my recovery, I guess, say, to helping others. And it has just been such a good experience, that I'm actually helping others, and it happened to be some of the elderly homes where I volunteer with on the weekend. And that way of just being compassionate and recognizing other people, how they're hurting and how they're experiencing difficulties, it's just really been such a good experience, and it continues to be.
That is a great example of how we can help others. So keep up the good work, That's just amazing. Thank you, Rob, for sharing that. I see that Shireen in the chat box, she said that for me, it was seeing at an early age the suffering of others, those economically poor, that led me to work today in the church. Shireen, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for taking that experience that you had at a young age that now motivates you to want to help others. You know, that's just a beautiful thing. Yeah, thank you. Does anyone else have anything to share? Um, you know, one of the things that I said at the end of my talk was, you know, that marginalized people, they are definitely the homeless, the poor, the sick, the outcast, but they're also people who are very close to us. They could be people in your own home who's suffering with some kind of depression or an anxiety, an older person who's lonely, who could use a phone call, or someone in the hospital that's sick would love to hear from you. Maybe it's a kid that's in school, you know, a young person that's being bullied. You know, that was a big part of my talk too, about being bullied. I don't know if any of you've ever experienced that in your life, but I think that it is a problem in our society that people are being judged, talked about, mistreated, air of superiority. And I think we need to address these things so that we can move in a better direction. I didn't know if anyone had anything to share on that, because I do think we need to address gossip and bullying. Gossip's a problem too, isn't it? You know, and I do think that happens everywhere. It happens, you know, in homes and extended families, workplaces, churches, online. Yeah, there's a lot of online. But that's something that we need to stop ourselves, right? Have you ever been in a conversation where somebody comes up and you're hearing way too much information about this person that you know they would never want other people to hear this stuff? It's a hard thing to walk away, isn't it? When I've been in situations where I literally just said, I have to walk away. And I walked away and I felt better. But then later on, someone said to me, you walked away because you didn't like what was going on, did you? And I said, that's right. And she said, I think after that, no, everybody stopped, you know? And it can be an uncomfortable thing to do, but we need to stop it in its tracks, right? Because there's a difference between, people care a lot of times about reputation, don't they? But what about character and virtue? And reputation is what other people think of us. But that virtue and the character is what God, and really what we think of ourselves, really. I think it's also what we think of ourselves too, not just God. So when we walk away from gossip and bullying, you know, sometimes we want to be in that in crowd, right? What's the in crowd? Who are they? They're people that a lot of people respect because maybe they have money, looks, personality, you know, a lot of friends, a high position in a company, or just they say the right thing at the right time. Do you know people like that? You know, real witty sort of people. I know I'm not witty at all. That's why I had a script during this presentation, because I'm not witty. But God enlightened me to what's really important to him. You know, what's important to him? Important to him that we love other people, that we listen to other people, that we care deeply about those people who are suffering, uncared for, and rejected. So I want to, you know, we only have 5 more minutes or so, but does anyone else have anything to say on that note? Because I think moving forward for all of us, it's that awareness to care about what God cares about, right? That's one of my meditations in my book too.
And it looks like Heather has a story she would like to share.
Okay, please do, Heather.
Heather.
Hi, Ian. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'll try and be brief. So yeah, Ian, what you said really resonated with me, and I'm sure it does for all of your audience tonight. First of all, I think 1 Corinthians 13, that's my favorite, and that says it all. That's such a beautiful, words of St. Paul, that love is kind and compassionate, and never boasts. And I never put my personal situation with the tag of air of superiority. And I definitely think that that's a great way to put it. What I mean by that is, you know, while I work in social services for a nonprofit, and I try not to be judgy. I'm in the St. Joseph's Catechism certificate program currently. But, you know, I have a master's degree, and then I look at the, you know, people I work with, and instead of having the compassion that I went into this job for, I'll leave on a Friday saying, there goes another unwed mother. There goes another divorcee. They've created their own destiny. And, you know, I need to stop doing that. And, you know, what you said, you know, to just listen to someone, not judge them mentally. I mean, I would never say that out loud, but I think that really resonated. And I think, you know, it can be learned or even reinforced. You know, I forget this. And I think by keeping it in mind, you know, 1 Corinthians 13, keep that in mind. Maybe I'll, you know, I'll pray on it and post it next to my desk so that I keep what your words, what your message is, you know, right there in front of me, so I won't forget. So I think it can be learned or even relearned. That's my opinion. So I really want to, you know, thank you for that. And I also, my husband, was funny. I was working from home today, and my husband said a word that just caught my ear. We were talking of, you know, of course, you know, the the germs that are around. He said, you know, many things are contagious. And I also think that your attitude can be contagious. I work with people that, you know, will go in and have a bad attitude. And then once there's some kindness shown, they start to get kinder too. So I do think that attitude, that, you know, that air of kindness, not air of superiority, is contagious in a good, positive way. So anyway, so thank you so much. I definitely got a lot of great inspiration from your speech, your life story, and how to actively listen the right way.
Oh, Heather, thank you. That was beautiful. I want to invite, before we end, to all everyone, feel free to stay in touch with me. I do have a personal website too. It's just andesantis.com. Feel free to reach out. Heather, thank you for sharing on that. Truey Tran also has something she said in the chat, and I'm going to read it. It says that as God is love and we are all created in God's image and in his breath, without love or breath, humans may be not complete, humanity integral. Thanks be to God that author Ann DeSantis, thank you, share the importance of embracing marginalized. Yes, I'm thankful that Christ Jesus comes to reveal God's love for humans in need, to embrace each other as God does toward us, also giving us Mary, Mother Mary, who lives exampled fraternity. I do not know what other words to say. Reaching out to people is counted, even who are not in condition of marginalized. They still would need love and care and attention because people cannot live isolated. Thank you so much for sharing that one, Truey Chan. Now we're at the end. I wondered if I could
And
share
there's one more, if you don't mind.
Oh,
Sister, I think Sister
sure.
Joyce has something she would like to
Oh,
say. At
please
least to try to
do.
get your attention. Sister Joyce?
Okay.
Yeah.
I took one of the sisters to an eye doctor. So I was sitting in the waiting room waiting for her when one of the patients who had come in was an immigrant, and she had a person with her that was to translate for her. And she had the head gear on, I don't know what you call it, but so one of the men waiting for the doctor said, why don't you go back to your own country? And why are you dressed that way? And I spoke up and I said, leave her alone. He said, mind your own business. And I said, I am minding my business. Now, the thing I regretted, I did not go up and stand near the woman to show my support, but I did speak up and asked him to leave her alone. Then the doctor came out and said that they have to have people to translate for them. And if that man didn't mind his own business, he could go somewhere else to get his eyes taken care of. Anyway, that was my story.
Oh. Well, it seems like you took a strong stand, sister, which was a good thing to do, right, Ann?
Right.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And sadly, I know there's probably more stories like that out there. You know, we all need to praise sister. Thank you tremendously. There's one more comment. It says, Ann, thank you so much for causing me to refocus on the marginalized in my inner circle. if I just be more conscious of what they need. Thank you. I needed to hear your words. Thank you, Janice. Thank you to me, from me to you. I thank each and every one of you for your time. Thank you. And thank you, St. Joseph's College of Maine, Joanne, Stephanie, the entire team there. It has been such an honor for me. I love the school. I love all of you. And thank you for having me. God bless you all.
May I just have a moment to say something?
Please do.
George.
You hear me? Okay, I'm Sister Mary George, and just a point of interest, if you don't already know it, Mother Macaulay, who was the foundress of the Sisters of Mercy, she put forth to us several saints that were her favorites, and one of them was Raymond Nonatus.
Oh.
And you have the foundation there that you are the head of, and therefore you're closer to us than you probably knew before this whole program started. Professor Macaulay had devotion to Raymond Nonatus, and
I had no idea. I will also say, have any of you ever heard of Gwynedd Mercy College? Because that's where I got my undergrad.
Yes.
And it was the Sisters of Mercy who I adored, and I still do. So thank you again to all of you. This has just been a wonderful blessing of my life to do this presentation with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for participating. We really appreciate your time and your work to be with us, Anne. Thank you so much. We'll welcome you on campus one day soon. In the meantime, everyone stay safe, healthy, keep warm, and God bless you all. Thank you.